What's good, everyone? It's me, your boy Ryan Flowers, aka Clutch Sports Talk, and welcome to another episode of NFL Matchups. Week 12 is upon us, and as usual, we're going to talk about what we learned last week. Then we're going to jump right into my Real or Not segment, followed by my previews and predictions for Week 12 in the National Football League, and then close out the show with my fantasy impacts for you guys for your fantasy football league. So sit back and relax and enjoy the show. This is NFL Matchups with me, Ryan Flowers. Let's go.
We're going to be here all day, baby. I like this kind of party. I like this kind of party, baby.
Welcome back to the episode, but before we move on, if you haven't already subscribed to the Grid Network YouTube channel, please do so now and continue to like and comment as we continue to grow our page. All right, let's talk about what we learned a little bit about this past weekend in the National Football League. We'll start with the Ravens and Steelers. Steelers ended up prevailing that game in a low-scoring bout between those two division rivals. Some key takeaways for me was, number one, I knew that game was going to be what it was, right? It was a slobber knocker type of game. Russell Wilson did not play particularly well. He was a little bit uneven. To me, the big standout to me was the defense for the Pittsburgh Steelers. They were aggressive. They got after it. They limited the big plays that the Ravens had pretty much all season long. And their kicker, Chris Boswell, was 6 for 6. He accounted for all of the 18 points that the Steelers did score to win that particular game. Now, like I said before, the defense for the Steelers was legit, led by TJ Watt. They constantly kept pressure on Lamar Jackson, forcing him to not play the typical style that we're used to seeing him. Even Derrick Henry. Now, I know Derrick Henry did get a score in the end, but they did cause a fumble early in that game. I believe it was on the second possession, something like that. But the defense for the Steelers was definitely all over the field. Guys like Patrick Queen is playing his former team. Like Mike Tomlin said after the game, he says, another man's trash is another man's treasure. And that was definitely the case in this particular game. Now, when you look at the Baltimore Ravens side of things, listen, just looking at their stats, I mean, they had a bunch of missed opportunities, and particularly Justin Tucker, right? He missed, I believe, two crucial long field goals early in that game. And this is kind of weird for him because he's missed a lot of field goals this year. Now, arguably, he's a first ballot Hall of Famer, maybe, right? One of the best kickers we've seen in the National Football League, especially from deep, 50 yards and out. He's been the guy. But for whatever reason, in this particular game, he missed a 57-yard, I believe, and a 52-yard a kick, which is usually like an extra point for him. So missed opportunities there, fumbling the ball, Derrick Henry right there, which hasn't been common for him all season. Inaccurate passing by Lamar Jackson. Listen, he is still maybe the front runner, but that game on Sunday really did not do him any favors. It just proved to me that maybe the Ravens aren't as strong as we thought they were. Another thing too, penalties. I believe they had about 10 penalties, if I'm not mistaken. I know they're one of the most highest penalized team in the National Football League, which isn't a really good recipe for success, especially when you start to play other strong teams such as the Steelers or the Bills or the Chiefs or even Houston if they can figure the things out there for them. So you're looking at teams that aren't making a lot of mistakes, but you are, and definitely there was a slew of that in that Baltimore Ravens game that really helped propel the Steelers. Now, looking at Russell Wilson again, he didn't play a great game. He kind of was a game manager, in my opinion. He didn't get pushed the ball down the field like what we've seen him do the last couple games, especially with George Pickens. And credit to the Baltimore Ravens defense as well. But he was able to find that intermediate passing game, which was able to kind of help them survive. Now, they didn't get the ball in the end zone. I think there were a couple of drives where they probably should have scored a touchdown, but ended up resulting in a field goal. So overall, for me, the biggest thing that I learned is that the Ravens need to consistently improve on not making mistakes, especially in key moments, right? They've kind of been getting away by it a little bit. Obviously, they're still winning football games. The offense has been looking well. But again, it's all going to boil down in the postseason. Now, as far as Lamar Jackson is concerned, very talented. And this has always been a knock on him. When in crunch time, can he get it done? I still think he can. It's one loss, right? So it's only a week 11. They still have plenty of games to get through. They're going to have another matchup with these same Steelers again in the next couple of weeks at home. But one thing's for sure, the Steelers defense is operating at a very high level, and they kept this game close in order to win it. Literally, if you win a game without having to score a touchdown, That's pretty phenomenal, and you got to give credit to your defense, and that's exactly what they did. Now, with this win, the Steelers have put themselves in a position to say, you know what, hey guys, it ain't just about the Chiefs or the Bills or even the Ravens. We are serious contenders too, and I guess we'll have to see that in the next coming weeks. What a great game we had between the Buffalo Bills at home against the Kansas City Chiefs, the reigning champs. Listen, the Buffalo Bills came away with that victory, and it was well-deserved. Josh Allen, to me, he just keeps winning games despite not having some of his targets there. You know, Dalton Kincaid did not play. They were missing Keon Coleman, but guys like Amari Cooper, who stepped up, you know, made some really big time catches. Khalil Shakur really handled some really good receptions there late in that game. And they just rode Josh Allen to that victory, especially that 4th and 2 late in that game was a critical state because, yeah, they could have punted, but we all know you punt that ball away to Patrick Mahomes, more than likely he's going to probably kill you. and teams have found that out time and time again. Now, the Bills did get the win. It was a heroic performance, I would say. Defensively, too. I mean, they really did a good job limiting the Chiefs' big plays. Obviously, you're not going to limit them throughout the whole game. They were able to find something when the run game late in that game, especially when they start handing the ball off to Kareem Hunt. And that's going to be a scary sight when the Chiefs do get Isaiah Pacheco back. But back to the Bills overall. They're a well-coached team, right? I always say this on all of my platforms, whether it's here on NFL Matchups or even on my Sunday Wake Up Show live on Sunday. So make sure you guys check that out. This is a mature, grown-up team, okay? You look at other teams, maybe they're down a couple players. They just don't know what to do. But the Bills, it doesn't matter because why? The one constant back there is Josh Allen. Now, Lamar lost this past weekend. Josh Allen won this week. Low-key, I feel like Josh Allen is maybe building up some steam to take over the front runner here as far as the MVP candidate is concerned. Still a ways to go. Obviously, that award still is going to have to figure it out later on. But definitely Josh Allen should be considered highly for that particular award. Now, there were some plays. They did miss Amari Cooper on some deep throws, but overall, using Josh Allen's legs is crucial for this particular team. The run game was okay, I would say, but when it boils down to it, their run game has to be Josh Allen. And he proved that on that 4th and 2 where he scored that touchdown to eventually seal the game for the Buffalo Bills. Now, let's look at the Chiefs. On the other hand, first loss of the season, good. Honestly, I don't think it's a big deal, honestly. It's probably a more bigger deal for the Buffalo Bills because they feel like they got to beat the Chiefs because of their recent postseason performances against them. And I believe Josh Allen has won more games against Patrick Mahomes than any other starting quarterback. And correct me if I'm wrong in the comment section, but let me know. But, you know, as far as the Chiefs are concerned, they're probably like, you know what, we can just get that out the way because they have bigger fish to fry. I don't think they're looking at, oh, we're going to go undefeated like the 72 Dolphins. No, they're looking for a three-peat, something that has not happened yet since the merger of the AFL and the NFL. That's not happened. So I think they got bigger fish to fry. You know, that's a game they probably could have won too as well. A couple mistakes down the stretch. The defense just couldn't get that stop that they needed. That timely stop, which they've been known to do recently, right? So Patrick Mahomes led them down the field, got the touchdown to come within striking distance. Then the defense just kind of gave it up at the end of the day. But granted, it's Josh Allen, right? So I don't think, if anything, this affects the Chiefs. Now, I believe that their schedule is going to get a little bit harder. It's going to be a little bit more difficult, especially because they're not really performing well on offense altogether, like at least not efficiently the way we've grown accustomed to. But the defense is still solid. I don't think that's going to be a problem. You know, teams lose. That's just what it is. It's the National Football League. You know, listen, it's a reason why no team has gone undefeated since 1972. It's freaking hard to do that. And every week you're going to be getting everyone's best because why? They're the Chiefs. They're the reigning champions. It's Patrick Mahomes. It's Andy Reid. It's Travis Kelce. It's Taylor Swift. You're going to take everyone's best shot. And so I'm not that concerned. Like I said before previously, they're going to get Isaiah Pacheco back. And between him and Kareem Hunt, whoa, look out. And it's slowly but surely, DeAndre Hopkins is going to start to maybe fill out a role there. Xavier Worthy is going to probably get a little bit better, right? He's a rookie, right? Juju Smith-Schuster had some really good catches. So overall, it wasn't a bad loss. You know, turnovers a big thing. Obviously, they lost the turnover battle, but those are things that can be corrected by a good, solid football team. So kind of what I learned really is that, you know, these are two competitive teams, and this is not the last time I think we're going to see these two teams face off. But next time, it's probably going to be for more. In my final, what we learned this past week in the National Football League, the NFC West is going to be a tight race. with Seattle winning over the 49ers on Sunday. And, before I move further, shout out to Geno Smith, right? I mean, this is his first win against the 49ers. Like, that's crazy to me. And I read a stat the other day is that this is his 7th game winning drive since 2023, and he leads the league in comeback wins as a quarterback. So, he's flying under the radar with this team. But listen, this race is going to be insane. You got Arizona at the top, and then there's this log jam with the Niners, the Seahawks, and the Rams, right? So what's going to happen? I don't know, man. But this division went from kind of like, oh my God, this is terrible, to a very intriguing type of race for this division. And the Niners, going into the season, I thought they had this by far, right? I didn't expect the Cardinals to be as solid as they were. The Rams, I knew they were dealing with injuries, obviously, and they battled back from that. If you think about the Rams from week 1, when they played Detroit, they lost Puka Nacua. They lost Cooper Kupp for an extended amount of time. Their offensive line was in shambles. They were missing guys on the defensive end. And the sheer fact that they are, I believe, 5-5 and tied in the NFC West, that's remarkable coaching. So, what I learned from this particular division is that it's literally the wild, wild west here. But in regards to Geno Smith and the Seattle's performance, what a come from behind win, man. I mean, I can't say much about Geno Smith other than he's playing at a high level. He's a veteran quarterback. That last drive was just a microcosm of all of the big plays that he's capable of making, and he made them when it mattered most. Jackson, what's his name? Smith Njigba, DK Metcalf, timely catches there towards the end. But San Francisco's defense is not as vaunted as it once was before. Obviously, Nick Bosa went down with an oblique injury, I believe. He didn't play the rest of that game. They probably could have used him late, especially when Geno Smith was back there just throwing dots. So a lot of questions. And I know they got Christian McCaffrey back, and that's a big boost because he does help that offense out, right? Whether he touches the ball or not, he's a dynamic player. But Jawan Jennings also stepped up too. But there's something wrong with this particular team, and I can't really place my finger on it. But they don't have that same essence or that same aura that we're the Niners, we're going to come beat you, right? No, they're still talented. Don't get me wrong. Still well coached, but I think the rest of the division has caught up to them. And I think Arizona definitely can compete with them for sure. We've seen that. I believe they still have to make a trip to Arizona as well. So this division may come down to the very, very end. And who will be left at the top? Honestly, I can't really call out at this point because I thought the Niners were going to win handily over the Seahawks this time around. They beat them convincingly a couple weeks ago on the road without Christian McCaffrey, but I guess they made their adjustments. But now the NFC West is legitimately the wild, wild west, and I don't know who's going to come out on top. But the biggest takeaway for me is that, just buckle up because it's going to be a wild ride. Okay, let's get into a little bit of real or not here on NFL matchups. And the first real or not is, has Lamar Jackson's stranglehold on the MVP race slipped? Real or not? Let's talk about it. Well, first things first, not a great performance this past weekend against the Steelers. And I kind of talked about that earlier on. There were some missed opportunities there in that game. And he's lost to some really good teams recently. I know they got the Bills resume on there, the Bills win on his resume, but you've lost to the Chiefs already. You've lost to now the Steelers now. Now you'll get an opportunity to play them again. But I think the race is tightening up because you got guys like Saquon Barkley, who's doing his thing in Philadelphia, right? I know the Giants are kicking themselves right now. And then you got guys like Josh Allen, who's playing at a really high level with less talent, mind you, right? So they're 7-4 right now. I'm not going to say the sky is falling, but last week he was on top of the world. And that's how funny and how fast things can change here in the National Football League. 1 minute you can be on top of the world, you lose. And then if you lose a certain way, the bottom can fall right from under you, right? So do I feel, real or not, has he lost his stranglehold on the MVP race? Absolutely, that's a real. Okay, moving right along, real or not, are the Pittsburgh Steelers legitimate Super Bowl contenders? Let's talk about it. Now, coming off of a fresh win against a divisional rival at home where they didn't score any touchdowns, your kicker beat them. Steelers are looking pretty good. Like, they're 5-0 against winning teams this season, and their offense is 5th in scoring. Now, obviously, that wasn't on display this past weekend, but Russell Wilson has kind of taken over. He's still undefeated as the starting quarterback, and like I said, they're putting together a really, really good resume. Their defense is phenomenal. TJ Watt is getting after it, right? They added guys like Preston Smith via trade. So, and I think when you stack them up against the Chiefs or the Bills or obviously the Ravens, their style of football, it can travel. And what I mean by that is that because they play defense so well, they can muck up the game. And when you playing teams, I used to hate watching, or when I played back in the day, I used to hate playing against teams that would slow the game down because they played really good defense. And why? Because they're dictating their tempo. And to me, I think that's kind of like what the Steelers are doing. And Mike Tomlin does not get enough credit at the end of the day. So, and for the most part, they've owned the Baltimore Ravens in this division, right? So I believe now they're like 8-9, 8 wins in the last 9 games or something crazy like that. I don't know. But definitely they've had a lot of success against the Baltimore Ravens. And so, yes, real or not, are the Pittsburgh Steelers legitimate Super Bowl contenders? That is a real. In my final real or not, have the Kansas City Chiefs lost their clear path to home field advantage throughout the playoffs? Let's talk about it. Now, they just lost to the Buffalo Bills. Now, they're not undefeated anymore, like I mentioned earlier in the show. Not sure if it's quite of a big deal mentally, like teams lose, right? Obviously. But when you look at it now, Buffalo Bills now will have the tiebreaker advantage, especially if this thing kind of gets close towards the end. And then you look at the Kansas City Chiefs record right now. They still got, it's not the record, but their schedule. You still got matchups against the Chargers, Texans, Steelers, and I believe the Broncos as well, a team they almost lost to. So it's not going to be easy, right? It's not going to be easy. So I still, the path for them is going to be a little bit harder, especially because of the scheduling. And I found off the top of my head, I don't believe Buffalo Bills schedule down the stretch is as daunting as it is for the Kansas City Chiefs. Does it matter for them? Honestly, probably not. We saw that last year that it didn't matter. They had to go on the road for the first time in Patrick Mahomes' career, and they still got the job done, still ended up winning the Super Bowl. So, to answer the question, have they lost their clear path to home field advantage? I'm going to say, yes, they have. I believe they have lost their path because of just all the things that I mentioned before. It's not going to be easy, but at the end of the day, it doesn't matter. They're still the Kansas City Chiefs. All right, let's get into some preview and predictions here on NFL matchups for Week 12 in the National Football League. It starts with Thursday night football action. AFC North division rivals, Pittsburgh Steelers taking on the Cleveland Browns. Pittsburgh coming off of a glorious win, thrilling win against another divisional rival, the Baltimore Ravens, where they did not score a single touchdown, but their kicker, Chris Boswell, kicked them to victory. This week, they got a matchup against another divisional rival with the Browns. I think this one's going to be closer than expected. Teams in this division really play each other tough. I believe that the Steelers will prevail overall. They have the better talent right now. They got a little bit more mojo going. Jameis Winston against this Pittsburgh defense, I think, is going to throw a couple picks here. A lot of it, too, is because he's going to feel pressure. And on top of that, he's kind of a maverick when it comes to the ball and protection. He's going to throw it out there, and I believe the Steelers will be ready. TJ Watt's going to have a feast out there. But I do think it's going to be close just because the Steelers offense have been a little bit inconsistent, although Russell Wilson is playing fairly okay. But this past weekend, you saw some struggles there, especially down the field. He was able to connect on some intermediate passes. But overall, I feel like the Steelers should win this game, but it's going to be a close one. All right, let's look at the defending champs taking on the Carolina Panthers. Carolina Panthers at home, surprisingly, play okay. They play okay. Now, don't get me wrong. They're still not a great football team. Bryce Young finding his way through the NFL now. But listen, Chiefs coming off of a loss, a game that they probably thought that they probably should have won, right? If you ask them, they're probably thinking, yeah, you know what? We're down in this game, but we got Mahomes, we got Andy Reid, we got the Chiefs kingdom, we got the magic. We should win that game against Buffalo, but they didn't. They fall short. Now they got to head back on the road to Carolina in Charlotte to play the Panthers. On paper, this is not even close, right? This should be a mixed match, but I think it'll be close in the beginning just because the Chiefs offense isn't that explosive, but overall, through attrition, the Chiefs should pull away from this, from the young Panthers there and get the win. All right, we got Minnesota Vikings taking on the Chicago Bears, an NFC North clash here. Bears coming off of a loss, a game that they probably should have won that game if it wasn't for a blocked field goal at the end against the Packers. Listen, the Bears, I don't know, man. They have what it takes, obviously, right? Offensively, Caleb Williams still just doesn't look all that impressive. The running game is kind of their only saving grace at this point. Defense, they can be had in certain occasions. And then you look at Minnesota where, Sam Darnold has become the issue, right? Which is weird because in the beginning of the year, he wasn't the issue. He was a candidate for early MVP, right? But nonetheless, I think the Bears have an actual chance to win this game. So I'm going to actually take the Bears in this one. Although I still like the Vikings, but I feel like the shine from the Vikings is starting to wear off a little bit. I think they're still a good football team. I think they're playing above expectations, and I think they're starting to come down. Basically, it's like a Cinderella scenario where the clock has struck midnight, and they're kind of coming back to reality. I still think they'll make the playoffs, but I think the Bears will get them in this matchup. I got Tennessee Titans taking on the Houston Texans. Texans coming off of a really big win on the road in the Battle of Texas over the Dallas Cowboys. I mean, just stomped them. That score does not reflect that game. Still a little concerning, though, with the Texans. CJ Stroud not living up to last year's performance as a rookie. I get it. It's kind of like a slump. Not saying that he's a bum by any stretch of the imaginary, but not really, like I said, living up to what we saw last year. Now, granted, he was down Nico Collins. He is down Stephon Diggs. So that'll, you can see kind of production tanking there a little bit. Joe Mixon is still a guy that they're going to have to use. He's going to have to be the bell cow for this team as they continue to try to make a case for themselves in the AFC, because right now, to me, it's the Chiefs, Bills, and the Steelers, and then you have teams like the Ravens now who are kind of fading a little, well, not fading, but they slipped up a little bit, and then you got the Texans there. So you look at Tennessee side of things, Will Levis is still the quarterback there. Yeah, he's had a couple good plays here and there, but overall, I mean, this is not a very great football team, but these teams play each other relatively close. And in most cases for all of these divisional games, right, where the teams know each other well, the players know each other well, and so they can prepare themselves for that. So I think Tennessee should lose this game anyway, and Houston should win this game. I think it'll be close. I don't think it'll be a blowout. I don't know what the spread is off the top of my head, but I would assume it can't be no more than a touchdown. But I can see the Tennessee Titans maybe covering but for sure the Texans winning this game outright. All right, Detroit Lions taking on the Indianapolis Colts. I'm not going to say much about the Lions. That they are on a warpath. They beat the crap out of Jacksonville. It wasn't even fair. Honestly, it was like watching a Madden game on rookie. They literally could not do anything wrong, and it showed. Now they got Anthony Richardson on the road. He's going to be the quarterback there. I don't believe in him still. I know he looked decent this past Sunday, but it's still Anthony Richardson. Maybe the benching maybe helped him, maybe brought some things into perspective. But at the end of the day, I mean, you beat the Jets and you only beat them by one. You have a team that has unfinished business, and they're on a warpath. And I don't think that the Colts are good enough at this point. I think the Lions are the much stronger team, so I have no problem picking them here and getting the win on the road in Indianapolis. All right, we got New England Patriots taking on the Miami Dolphins on the road. The Dolphins, pretty impressive win over the Raiders. Granted, it is the Las Vegas Raiders. Tua's starting to look a bit more comfortable. I will say this, though, the running game, I think, is what's been most effective for the Miami Dolphins team. Being able to hand the ball off to these guys, get some yards, maybe, free up Tua, maybe not putting a lot of pressure on him to make those passes. Because, listen, Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle haven't really had the seasons that we were expecting them to have. And a lot of it too, because, Tua was out, but he's back. He's been back. This is his third or fourth game, if I'm not mistaken, but we haven't really seen that magic that they had last year where they were just throwing the ball over the field. Maybe, their coach there, Coach McDonald there says, well, let's just keep running the football and let's see what happens. Then you got New England. Drake May is probably the only bright spot. Tough loss last week for sure. But there is some promise there. Not sure if they have enough, though, on the road in Miami. The Dolphins are pretty decent at home, so I'm going to take the Dolphins there, too, as well at home. All right, Tampa Bay Buccaneers taking on the New York Giants. There's a quarterback change for the Giants. Daniel Jones is no longer the quarterback going this week. It's going to be, I believe his name is Tommy DeVito or something like that. I know he kind of came across the scene last year as a fan favorite. Well, he's back. Taking over the reins for Daniel Jones. Is this the last time we see Daniel Jones in a New York Giants jersey? Probably not. Still a couple games left, so I wouldn't imagine that he'll be done. But for right now, for the foreseeable future, he is done. Then you got Tampa Bay, Baker Mayfield, probably one of the most disappointing teams so far. Granted, they've been hit by the injury bug exclusively at the wide receiver position with Chris Godwin and Mike Evans missing significant amount of time. But they found some guys in the running game like a Bucky Irving, but overall, they just haven't lived up to what I thought they should be. That this could be kind of a trap game. It's kind of weird, new quarterback. This guy, he makes kind of like weird plays, but my heart is telling me that they're going to lose this game, Tampa Bay, but I got to go with my brain on this one. Just logically look at this as Baker Mayfield is the better quarterback in this matchup. So although he is missing some talent, he still got guys like Cade Otton there to get the job done. So I'm going to go with Tampa Bay to win this one. I think it'll be closer, but I'm going to go with the Buccaneers. All right, Dallas Cowboys taking on the Washington Commanders in DC. Cowboys suck. Washington Commanders should win this game. Simple as that. Cowboys are not really good. It'll be a close game, but the Commanders should be the better team. They have the better quarterback. They have the better roster at this point. They have the better coach at this point. So they check all those boxes. To me, they should win this game. The Cowboys are not a good football team. They're 3-7 now. Winless at home. Their only wins have been coming on the road. If the Commanders really want to be taken seriously, you cannot falter to this team. I get it's a divisional game. It should be tight, but at the end of the day, they should prevail. So I'm going to go with the Commanders here. In the AFC West, we have the Denver Broncos taking on the Las Vegas Raiders. Bo Nix threw for 4 touchdowns last week in a win against the Atlanta Falcons at home. Guess what? He's got another sorry-ass defense to go up against in the Las Vegas Raiders. And this is funny because the Raiders defense, I thought going into the season, was going to be something that they can hang their hat on. Unfortunately, they can't even hang anything on there because that unit sucks. Gardner Minshew is still going to be the quarterback. I know a lot of people here in Las Vegas are clamoring for Desmond Ridder. Not sure why. He sucks too. There's a reason why he was cut by the Falcons, then was loaded onto the Arizona Cardinals practice squad. The guy can't really play, but for whatever reason, the Las Vegas faithful here believe that he can. But Gardner Minshew should be the quarterback. He didn't play bad last week against the Dolphins, I would say, but he's got a tough defense to face this particular week. You see what the Denver's defense can do to quarterbacks, and their offense is looking pretty good too, with Bo Nix, really matriculating the ball down the field, making the right decisions, using his legs to get first downs and just create plays overall. I'm going to go with the Broncos in this one to win the game. We got a big one here. San Francisco 49ers and the Green Bay Packers. Niners coming off of a tough loss, a divisional loss at home. Don't know the status of Nick Bosa yet. Green Bay Packers, they kind of escaped the jaws of defeat by a blocked field goal. Again, with the Packers, they're not consistent enough for me. They are at home. I'm going to go with the Packers in this one. There's something about the 49ers, I think, that people are starting to figure out against them. And I know Christian McCaffrey's back, and I know he presents a lot of matchup problems, but I think if there's a team that can handle them this week, the Packers can on defense. On the 49ers defense, on the other hand, they're struggling too. Geno Smith was able to do what he wanted to do last week towards the end of that game, resulting in a game-winning touchdown. The magic for 49ers, I believe, has worn off. This window for them to be this dominant team, I think it's almost closed, if not closed altogether. They got a lot of issues going on too, especially not just, this season, but in the offseason. What are they going to do with Brock Purdy, all the money that they've invested in some of these other players out there? But I like Green Bay in this one. As long as Jordan Love can make the right plays down the stretch, not make these stupid turnovers, they're at home. They should have that going for them. So I like Green Bay in this one. All right, Arizona Cardinals on the road taking on Seattle. I really like the Arizona Cardinals in this matchup. I still think right now they're playing the best football in the NFC West. Defensively, they're starting to pick things up. Kyler Murray on the offense is making plays. He is continuing to establish that rapport between him and Marvin Harrison Jr. James Conner is running the football like a madman. Trey McBride is catching the ball all over the field, making plays. Seattle, on the other hand, really big win last week on the road in a place where they tend to not really win a lot. But Geno Smith kind of, he kind of cast those demons away. They are at home. That's an advantage. I still like Arizona in this particular matchup. I still think they're the more buttoned up team. I like Arizona in this one. Sunday Night Football, Philadelphia Eagles taking on the LA Rams. This one is an interesting one. Like on paper, Philadelphia is the better team for sure. And then you look at LA, they're kind of like they have a puncher's chance. You have the beast in Saquon Barkley come. Like you have to shut him down. I'm not quite sure if they can do that. I think this will be a high-scoring affair. If I'm going to bet anything, I might bet the over on this one with Puka Nacua and Cooper Kupp, and then you got guys like Devontae Smith, A.J. Brown, Saquon Barkley. Like, there will be no lack of scoring for this one. Although I like the Rams, I like what they're doing. I know they're trying to stay in contention, but I just think the Philadelphia Eagles will just have a little bit too much, and it's going to be a war of attrition. I'm going to go with Philadelphia on this one. All right, to close out the week, this is a big matchup. Monday Night Football, Baltimore Ravens heading to LA to take on the LA Chargers. The Chargers survived this past Sunday night against the Cincinnati Bengals, and guess what? They got to turn back around and play another AFC North team in the Baltimore Ravens. Now, listen, I don't think that the Ravens have the arsenal from a passing perspective as the Cincinnati Bengals. It's going to boil down to, can the Chargers stop the run? That's what it's going to boil down to. And if they can't hold up that bargain, then they're going to be in for a long one. There were some things in that game that kind of boggled me a little bit with the Chargers. Now they ended up finishing the game. They won the game. Honestly, they probably should have lost that game. I don't expect the Ravens to have two stinkers. So I'm going to go with the Ravens in this one. I think it's going to be a shootout, and I think it's going to boil down to the last play of the game where the Ravens will have the ball and they're going to go in for the win. So it's going to be a good one, but I like the Baltimore Ravens in that one. So there you have it. Those are my previews and predictions for Week 12 here on NFL Matchups. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section. All right, before we get out of here, let's talk a little bit about some fantasy football impacts here. I know playoffs are approaching here, and you guys need some information about who maybe you should start or maybe go and get in the free agency waiver wire. So let's talk about it. Let's start with the quarterbacks. Jameis Winston is one of those guys where if you're in a pinch again and you need a guy that's not afraid to throw the ball down the field, he will throw the ball. He will chuck the ball. He will throw the ball all over the yard. So he's definitely somebody you want to consider. I know he's rostered in a lot of leagues right now, but if you can maybe get him or maybe start him, you might have an opportunity to steal a game there for sure. So, he's a definitely viable matchup for you guys in the next coming weeks. Bo Nix has definitely stepped his game up. He had a 4-touchdown game against the Atlanta Falcons. Not expecting him to throw 4 touchdowns every game, but he's a dual threat. He can throw and he can also run the football too, especially in those goal line situations. So Bo Nix for the Denver Broncos, definitely a guy you want to consider as well. Now, as far as running backs, Cam Akers from the Minnesota Vikings had a really, really good game this past weekend. Obviously Aaron Jones out right now, or I believe Aaron Jones should be coming back if I'm not mistaken, but he is definitely the clear backup here, but I can see him spelling Aaron Jones every now and then. So Cam Akers is definitely somebody you want to consider. Amir Abdullah for the Las Vegas Raiders. Now I get it. The Raiders have not been able to run the football whatsoever at all this year between their two other backs, I believe, in Alexander Madison and Zamir White. Now, however, though, Amir Abdullah has shown some glimpses to find the end zone. So maybe if you are in a crunch and you need someone, definitely somebody you should consider. My top targets for wide receiver, Christian Watson again for the Green Bay Packers. The Packers receivers are kind of funny because it's like a rotating circle with them, right? You don't know which guy is going to be the one to step up. So, you got a chance, especially with them, because you don't know who Jordan Love is going to have the hot hand for. And you're seeing guys like Dontavian Wicks take fewer reps and getting the targets from Jordan Love. So you can definitely see Christian Watson start to elevate and get some more touches there. But he's kind of a boomer bust type of guy. Marquez Valdez-Scantling, 2 weeks down in a row, he scored a touchdown for sure. I believe he generated like 16, 17 points in fantasy this past week. So definitely a guy worth considering. A lot of people are not really thinking about the Saints because they're not really in contention. So you might be able to get him. If you do have him, you should start him. As far as tight ends too as well, Jonnu Smith had a breakout game this past weekend for the Miami Dolphins. Had a touchdown, I believe, over 100 and something yards receiving. So definitely a guy you want to be on the lookout for. Zach Ertz for the Washington Commanders. He's been really consistent in fantasy as far as fantasy stats are concerned. So definitely some guy you want to consider too. And then finally with defenses, I like Tampa Bay. Overall, this is a pretty good defense. Now they do have some really good matchups up against, especially this week against the New York Giants, who's made the switch from Daniel Jones now to I forgot the other guy's name, but the other guy, the other quarterback, the Italian guy, I forgot his name off the top of my head, but definitely a matchup worth looking at. And then finally the Washington Commanders again. Got the Cowboys this coming week, so definitely the Cowboys ain't scoring no points, and they're down to Cooper Rush, so definitely worth a look at as well too. So there you have it. Those are my fantasy football impacts for this week. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section. All right, that's all I got for this episode on NFL matchups. Make sure you guys continue to support, like, and comment, and make sure you subscribe to the Grid Network as we're continuing to grow this YouTube page. So we really appreciate all the support. So that's all I got this week. Until next week, like I always say, never settle till the work is done. We'll see you guys soon. Peace.